What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to JellyGoonTv. Welcome back to my beautiful viewers and subscribers. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. Today we have another comment request, but before we get to that, I want to say I'm so sorry. I've been this long gone. I've been an internship in a high school. Been working on that, like late free. So I really come home and I'm just tired. Like I'm home around 5 p.m. or something like that every day. So yeah, it's a normal day of work. It is what it is, man. But I'm just tired when I come home and I'm trying to figure out a way just to upload videos while I'm doing it. But now it's the weekend, live stream tomorrow, I guess. Just have to help move some stuff for my sister's ex-boyfriend. So yeah, but today we have another comment request by this beautiful person right here, and other people, of course, who comment this comment. So today we're gonna react to Napoleon Endgame, France 1840. So I'm sorry I haven't really uploaded it because of the school thing, but yeah, we're gonna watch it now, 33 minutes. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into this piece of artwork and see what Napoleon Endgame was, because he was a smart man. Like, he really did things, but you know, every empire has to end sometimes. Let's go. Peace. Peace is easy enough to say the word. Am I to give up all that I possess in Germany? Napoleon de Comte, Buchenau, Paris, November.
In October 1813, Napoleon had suffered his heaviest ever defeat at Leipzig, the Battle of the Nations. Surviving French forces, exhausted, sick and demoralized, retreated to the River Rhine and prepared to defend France from invasion. But in November, the armies of the Sixth Coalition paused their advance, and Austrian Foreign Minister Metternich offered peace terms. The Frankfurt proposals would allow Napoleon to keep his throne if France returned to her so-called natural frontiers. It was the best offer Napoleon was likely to get, now that his back was to the wall, and all Europe's great powers were united against him. Even so, he did not accept the terms. He merely agreed to reopen negotiations. To the Allies, and many in France itself, it proved that Napoleon would not listen to reason. The war went on, and by January 1814, Napoleon's situation looked even worse. Many of his besieged garrisons in the east were starved into surrender. Marshal Davout, with 34,000 men in Hamburg, was now besieged. Denmark, one of France's last allies, was invaded by Bernadotte's Swedish army and made to join the coalition.
Let me pause here. You see what I'm saying, Sweden? Y'all motherfuckers are stabbing us in the back, guaranteed every single time we read history. It's unbelievable. But I still love you. I still love Sweden no matter what, man. Sweden is my brothers and sisters. But I'm just saying, man, Sweden is always messing Denmark up somehow. It's kind of weird, but we had so many wars between us. It's unbelievable. So yeah, but without further ado, fuck you, Sweden. No, I'm kidding. Let's go. I love Sweden.
French troops evacuated the Netherlands, which reasserted its independence after nearly 20 years of French control. In Italy, Eugene's army faced a new enemy, Joachim Murat, King of Naples, now marching north with 30,000 men to honour his new alliance with the Sixth Coalition. In Paris, Napoleon responded to the crisis with a series of extreme measures. Property taxes doubled, state salaries and pensions suspended, 300,000 new conscripts called up, from a country already exhausted by 20 years of war.
That's crazy, 23 years of war.
He ordered the release of Pope Pius, under French house arrest for the last 5 years, to try to shore up his support in Italy. He even agreed to release Fernando, the Bourbon King of Spain, to take up his throne in exchange for peace between France and Spain, a condition that Fernando was in no position to honour. But these concessions were too little, far too late. In January, 2 coalition armies crossed the Rhine into France.
Here we go.
Blucher's army of Silesia and Schwarzenberg's army of Bohemia. Outnumbered French forces in their path could only
that
fall
almost
back.
3,000 soldiers marching through
On
Paris,
the 25th
man. That's
of January,
crazy.
Napoleon said farewell to his wife and son at the Tuileries Palace before leaving for the front. He would never see either of them again.
Yeah.
With just 70,000 men, he faced odds of 4-1. Most of his troops were raw conscripts, some without uniforms, many just learning how to hold a musket.
Let me pause it. That's really desperate if you have like these uniscripts just walking in with no uniforms, no representing France, no representing anything, to barely hold the damn gun. Man, that's crazy to see, man. Not see, but hear, of course. But yeah, wow. Let's go.
But for the first time in years, Napoleon's army was so small that he'd be able to exercise direct command over all its movements. The result would be one of the most audacious and brilliant campaigns in history.
Oh, really? Wow.
Imagine Napoleon waging war in the 20th century. His cavalry replaced by armoured vehicles, cannon by attack helicopters, the old guard in heavy tanks, the Emperor with air support. Could you take the lessons of Napoleon and use them to dominate a modern three-dimensional battlefield? War Thunder, the free-to-play online game and our video sponsor, gives you that chance. Take command of a tank, aircraft or ship and fight it out across an immersive, combined arms battlefield with realistic physics and battle damage. There are an incredible 1,500 plus historically accurate, playable vehicles, from 1930s tanks to Cold War jets, plus variable realism settings from arcade to simulator. War Thunder is available on PC, PlayStation and Xbox, and is cross-platform between PC and consoles. Use the link in our video description to join the action and get a special sign-up bonus. Thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video.
If the enemy are foolish enough to cross the Rhine, I will march to meet them. Then you will see the meaning of the world despicable. Napoleon and Court Bookman. Alright, so let's see what you got.
The battle for France would be fought east of Paris, mostly across Champagne, a flat region divided by the rivers Marne and Seine and their tributaries. In late January, fields were dusted with snow and roads quickly turned to mud. Napoleon learned that the coalition armies were widely scattered, with part of Blücher's army near Napoleon's old college at Brienne. The Emperor advanced rapidly, hoping to trap and destroy part of Blücher's army. But after a hard day's fighting that cost both sides 3,000 casualties, Blücher was able to retreat towards Schwarzenberg's army.
Ooh.
That evening, Napoleon was nearly skewered by a charging Cossack, saved only by General Gorgo's good shooting. As Napoleon tried to work out the enemy's movements, Blücher, heavily reinforced by Schwarzenberg, made a surprise attack at La Rothière. Allied troops advanced through swirling snow to assault the village, defiantly held by young French conscripts. One was so inexperienced that Marshal Marmont had to personally show him how to load his musket during the battle. By late afternoon, Wreder's Bavarian Corps was falling on Napoleon's flank. Heavily outnumbered, Napoleon had no option but to retreat, having lost 5,000 casualties.
Wow.
And 73 guns abandoned in the thick mud. The Allies' frontal attacks meant their losses were greater, but by combining their armies, they defeated Napoleon on French soil for the first time.
That's crazy.
Believing Napoleon would now retreat towards Paris, the Allies decided to advance along two routes to ease pressure on the roads. Blücher would take a northern route along the Marne. Schwarzenberg would follow the Seine. But dividing their armies again would play right into Napoleon's hands.
The study of it's given me a great idea of his genius than any other. This is the Duke of Wellington on Napoleon's 1840 campaign.
After 2 days to reorganize, Napoleon continued his retreat to Nogent, where he learned that the Allies had split their armies. Not only that, they were advancing at different speeds. The aggressive Blücher racing ahead, while the more cautious Schwarzenberg lagged behind. Leaving Oudinot and Victor to guard the Seine bridges and delay Schwarzenberg, Napoleon raced north through mud and rain with 30,000 men. The army of Silesia was strung out on the march, oblivious to the danger it was in. First, Napoleon fell on General Ossouffiev's Russian 9th Corps at Champaubert, destroying it, taking its commander and 2,000 men prisoner. The next morning, he marched on General Osten-Sacken's force near Montmiral. This was a much larger force, with 2 infantry and 1 cavalry corps, and was expecting support from York's Prussian 1st Corps. But the Prussians were late, and Sacken's troops could not withstand the French onslaught.
Russians late.
At this desperate hour, the Emperor's elite Old Guard were no longer held back, but were often thrown into the thick of the fighting. By the end of the day, Napoleon had inflicted another 3,500 casualties, twice his own losses, and the Allies were in rapid retreat. Napoleon had ordered Marshal MacDonald to cut off the enemy's escape by seizing the Marne Bridge at Château Thierry. But York's Prussians got there first. The next day, Napoleon could only batter their rear guard as the enemy fled across the Marne, destroying the bridge behind them. Sending Marshal Mortier to rebuild the bridge and continue the pursuit, Napoleon doubled back to rejoin Marmont, who had been left to keep watch on Blücher. Napoleon attacked at Vauchamp, using General Grouchy's cavalry to outflank Blücher's army, which was soon in headlong retreat. A merciless French pursuit inflicted 6,000 Prussian and Russian casualties. Napoleon lost just 600 men. Napoleon had taken on an enemy army almost twice his size, and beaten it 4 times in just 6 days.
Let me pause here, man. And that's why I'm saying Napoleon, no matter what you say down in the comments, no matter how butthurt you are, no matter how much you love Russia, Prussia, whatever you love, Napoleon was a great freaky fucking guy. He was smart as fuck. Like, he was so smart. But the problem is when you have that big of an army, you can't really move that quickly, and there's so many people that you have to depend on, then you can't really do anything about it because there's so many people and so many puzzles that's still in. But don't get butthurt in the comments, man. Go fuck yourself. Napoleon was smart, man. He fucked up the Russians, and the Prussians or whatever, man. But it's still respect that I say it, man. Listen, respect to the soldiers who fell. I really do mean that. I have no disrespect towards that, but I'm just saying, man, Russia's too proud to see that they got handled here. Now, of course, this guy's probably gonna die or some shit like that, but I'm just saying, man, look at these stats right here. My man got stats. Please don't hate me, and I don't understand if you're mad at me, but butt it up, sugar cups. Stop being so pissed at the world. Let's go.
Blücher had lost an estimated 15,000 casualties in battle, and another 15,000 in smaller engagements, as stragglers or deserters.
Rest in peace to all the soldiers.
The army of Silesia had been scattered.
It's not funny
and
like that.
neutralized.
It's not funny like that. But that's what you're gonna use against me in the comments.
Marshals Victor and Oudinot had not been able to prevent Schwarzenberg's army of Bohemia from crossing the Seine in 3 places. Austrian troops were now just 40 miles from Paris. Leaving Mortier and Marmont to keep watch on Blücher, Napoleon raced south. Schwarzenberg, alarmed by news of Blücher's defeat and of Napoleon's approach, immediately ordered a retreat.
Oh, man.
It was too late for Wittgenstein's advance guard, routed at Mormant with 2,000 casualties.
That's a lot of soldiers, man.
Napoleon sent Victor's
What about
Second Corps
Prussia,
to
whatever the
seize
fuck
the
they
bridge
are?
at Montereau, but was so infuriated by its slow progress that he sacked Victor and gave his corps to General Gérard. The next day, at the Battle of Montereau, the French drove the Allied Württemberg Corps back across the river, with 30% losses.
That is crazy.
According to some accounts, the Emperor sighted the French cannon himself, as he had at Lodi 18 years before. Napoleon had the Allies on the run. But how long could it last?
Not long. Not long. Definitely not long. It can't be long, man. Recall what your military position is. If we are not with military and political produce, how can resist just peace demanded by 600 warriors? Let her if she dare. Oh shit.
Even as fighting continued, negotiations between France and the coalition reopened at Châtillon-sur-Seine on the 5th of February. The Allied terms were now more severe. A return to France's frontiers of 1791, which meant the additional loss of Belgium, a humiliation that Napoleon refused to accept. Instead, he tried to revive the Frankfurt proposals, hoping to play for time and to split the coalition, whose war aims varied from Britain's hardline
That's a lot of propaganda
to Austria's
against
more
Napoleon.
ambiguous position. But this hope was thwarted by British Foreign Secretary Lord Castlereagh. On the 1st of March, he persuaded the Allies to sign the Treaty of Chaumont. In it, Russia, Prussia, Austria and Great Britain agreed to keep 150,000 troops in the field and not to negotiate separately with France, while Britain added the sweetener of a £5 million subsidy to be shared among the Allies. The treaty's secret articles specified common war aims, including the future independence of the German states, Switzerland and Italy, while Spain was to be returned to the Bourbons and Holland to the House of Orange.
House of Orange.
The four powers even agreed that once they'd defeated Napoleon, they'd form a 20-year defensive alliance to maintain peace in Europe, a sign of their newfound commitment to each other.
So
A
Napoleon
split in the coalition had been
together.
Napoleon's
Who knows?
last best hope for a favourable peace. That was gone. And news from across the country was bleak. French cities were surrendering to the Allies without a fight. Nancy, Dijon and Mâcon had all fallen. In the south, Wellington defeated Marshal Soult at Orthez, forcing him to fall back on Toulouse. 2 weeks later, as British troops approached the city of Bordeaux, it declared loyalty to France's Bourbon kings. The mayor himself rode out to greet the British, bearing a white cockade, the sign of Bourbon allegiance. Napoleon's hope for a nation in arms to resist the Allies had not materialized. Allied troops, particularly Cossacks, often robbed French civilians and committed some atrocities. French peasants took revenge when they could, but there was no guerrilla war to mirror what French troops had encountered in Spain or Russia. The chief desire among ordinary French people was for peace, at almost any price.
Dangers crowded upon him, encountered and oppressed him from every side, but he sought to escape from them by misrepresenting them to himself.
Any talk of Napoleon's defeat in late February was premature. The French Emperor was driving Schwarzenberg's army of Bohemia before him, even though it was twice his size. But Schwarzenberg scrambled to safety behind the River Aube. Napoleon knew he had to land another decisive blow soon, so turned his attention back to Blücher. After an aborted attempt to join forces with Schwarzenberg, Blücher had decided to resume his advance on Paris, gathering reinforcements en route, and with only Marmont and Mortier's weak corps to oppose him. Leaving Marshal MacDonald in command in the south, Napoleon set off to intercept Blücher, covering 60 miles in 3 days along terrible roads choked with mud. At Napoleon's approach, Blücher retreated across the Marne, burning the bridges behind him.
Also, pussy
24
ass.
hours later, they'd been rebuilt by French engineers, and Napoleon was poised to crush Blücher against the Aisne River, because the major crossing point at Soissons was held by a Franco-Polish garrison. But after just a day's fighting, the garrison commander at Soissons tamely surrendered, allowing Blücher to escape. Napoleon continued his pursuit across the Aisne, still hoping to cut off the army of Silesia. But at Craon, he encountered Russian troops in a strong defensive position. The Russians fought stubbornly. The French finally forced the enemy to withdraw, but only at the cost of 6,000 casualties, including many irreplaceable veterans from Napoleon's guard. Napoleon pushed on to Laon.
Wow.
But by now, Blücher had concentrated his forces, 98,000 troops in all, and outnumbered Napoleon 2 to 1.
Shit.
French attacks were repulsed, while Marmont's corps was caught off guard by a late Allied counterattack and routed. Napoleon was lucky to avoid a much heavier defeat. Blücher, usually aggressive to the point of recklessness, was unwell and had been told Napoleon's army was twice as big as it was, leading him to act with unusual caution. Laon was a heavy blow to Napoleon. 6,500 casualties he could not afford. Undaunted, he fell back to Soissons, and after a brief moment to reorganize, he marched on the city of Reims, which had just fallen to Saint-Priest's Russian corps. In a whirlwind assault, Napoleon retook the city.
This guy is crazy, man, I swear.
Saint-Priest himself was mortally wounded, his corps routed. Meanwhile, in the south, Schwarzenberg had resumed his offensive as soon as he found out Napoleon had gone north. In heavy fighting, he'd driven Oudinot and MacDonald back from the River Aube.
That's a lot of
5
fighting,
days
man.
later, the Allies had recaptured Troyes. As MacDonald
Man,
retreated...
let me pause here. This is a crazy-ass fight. It goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, all the time, man. That's some crazy shit right here, man. That's a crazy-ass battle. I'm not even joking, man. This is messed up, man. But this is definitely the end game for Napoleon. He loses many people. Wow. Let's go.
Behind the River Seine. Now, after 4 days to rest and reorganize his battered army, Napoleon was coming south once more. Schwarzenberg, emboldened by news of Napoleon's defeat at Laon, decided that this time he would stand and fight.
About time.
Napoleon advanced on Arcis-sur-Aube, ignoring reports that the enemy was not retreating as he believed, but gathering for battle. As heavy fighting broke out, Napoleon still believed he faced only the enemy rearguard. It was a nasty surprise to discover that he faced the entire might of the army of Bohemia.
Woo!
28,000 men against 80,000. In desperate fighting, Napoleon personally rallied fleeing troops and exposed himself to enemy fire, having his horse killed under him by an exploding shell.
Wow.
But the odds were too great. At the end of the second day, Napoleon was forced to order the retreat.
saw the glorious death, disputing foot by foot the soil of the country. The balls flew around me. My clothes were pierced, but none reached. Man, this guy thinks he's a god, man. That's kind of messed up.
Napoleon believed his army was now too weak to take on the Allies directly, so he decided to change strategy. He would march into the rear of the Allied armies, join up with some of his isolated garrisons, and cut the enemy's lines of communication, forcing them to abandon their advance on Paris. But the Allies, until now always one step behind Napoleon, had just received crucial information.
Of course they did.
Talleyrand, the most brilliant French diplomat of the age, and the most slippery. He'd served France's monarchy, the Revolution, then Napoleon, until in 1807 he fell out irrevocably with the Emperor over foreign policy. He now believed that Napoleon was dragging France into ruin, and worked behind the scenes to ensure his downfall.
A little snake ass.
From Paris, he wrote to the Russian Emperor Alexander at Allied headquarters, informing him that in the capital, support for Napoleon was crumbling, and the city's defences had been completely neglected. He urged the Allies to march immediately on Paris, without allowing Napoleon to distract them. Talleyrand's information was confirmed when the Allies intercepted a report from Napoleon's chief of police, General Savary, meant for the Emperor. The treasury, arsenals and powder stores are empty. We are completely at the end of our resources. The population is discouraged and discontented, wishing peace at any price. As Napoleon advanced on Saint-Dizier, the Allies sent General Witzengerode and 10,000 cavalry to harass his army and to screen their own movements.
Screen?
Then began their march on Paris. At Fère-Champenoise, they collided with Marmont and Mortier's
Man, this is a
corps,
confusing ass
advancing
war.
to join Napoleon. An entire National Guard division, 5,000 men, was virtually wiped out as the marshals suffered a crushing defeat. Napoleon feared that the fall of Paris would be a fatal blow to his regime. His political authority and ability to wage war might not recover. So, when he received news of the Allies' movements, he tore up his plans and ordered a forced march back to Paris, intending to lead its defense in person. Napoleon's wife and son were evacuated from the capital, along with most of his ministers. His brother, Joseph, the ex-king of Spain, was in charge of the city's defences, but had done little. Paris was awash with rumours of treachery and defeat.
Paris is a beautiful city, just have to say, man.
Marmont and Mortier were able to reach Paris before the Allies, adding their troops to the garrison. It now totaled 37,000 men, including some hardened veterans of the Guard, but many more young conscripts, while a third were part-time soldiers of the National Guard. The Allies had 120,000 seasoned troops outside the city, and given the urgency of taking Paris before Napoleon could intervene, their elite guards and grenadier divisions would lead the way.
Wow, it's gonna be a...
On the 30th of March, they began their assault from the north.
The Battle of Paris.
Heavy fighting raged throughout the day. The city's defenders fought bravely, inflicting several thousand casualties on the advancing enemy. But defeat was inevitable.
Of course.
That night, to save Paris from destruction, Marshal Marmont agreed to surrender the city, on condition the garrison was permitted to leave with its weapons. At the Hôtel des Invalides, the 71-year-old Marshal Serrurier oversaw the burning of 1,400 flags and standards captured from France's enemies, as well as Frederick the Great's sword and sash, so they would not fall into Allied hands. Napoleon was just 15 miles from Paris when he was informed of the city's surrender. He sat with his head in his hands for 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's a big-ass defeat for a guy that's think he's God. We do not intend to expose Paris to the fate of Moscow. To the fate of Moscow.
On the 31st of March 1814, France's enemies marched into Paris for the first time since the 100 Years' War. Parisian crowds cheered the three Allied monarchs, bringers of peace. Everyone in Paris was suddenly a royalist once more.
It's kind of funny.
Above all,
People
they cheered for Emperor Alexander of Russia, now hailed as Europe's savior.
Oh, nice! Good job, Alexander.
Don Cossacks bivouacked on the Champs-Élysées. Allied troops generally behaved well.
Generally.
35 miles away, Napoleon was at Fontainebleau with 36,000 men, all of them hungry and exhausted after their 100-mile forced march.
Just give up, goddammit.
Nevertheless, Napoleon began planning an immediate advance on Paris. But for the first time, he faced unanimous opposition from his ministers and marshals,
Finally!
including Ney, MacDonald, Oudinot,
Somebody wanted to
and
talk to
Berthier.
this guy, man. They finally did it.
They reminded him of his oath to act for the good of France. He accused them of disloyalty, acting only to save themselves.
What? Dude,
They
are you
told
even
him
in the same
war
world?
was lost, and he must abdicate.
Let me pause here. I think Napoleon is too fed up with his own ignorancy and his own way of wanting to win. When he can't see that his country is suffering, his country is done, man. It's done. When you get the capital, it's done. That's crazy, man. Let's go.
In favor of his son, if possible. On the 4th of April, Marshal Marmont surrendered his entire corps to the coalition, which was marched over to the enemy lines against the wishes of many of its officers and men. This was a devastating blow to Napoleon, and encouraged the Allies to reject his offer of a conditional abdication in favor of his son. 2 days later, he abdicated without conditions. The Allied powers having proclaimed that the Emperor Napoleon is the only obstacle to the re-establishment of peace in Europe, the Emperor Napoleon, faithful to his oath, declares that he renounces for himself and his heirs the thrones of France and Italy, and that there is no personal sacrifice, including his life, that he is not ready to make in the interests of France.
That is nationalism.
Napoleon's abdication was formalized by the Treaty of Fontainebleau, by which he was allowed to keep the title of emperor, become sovereign of the small island of Elba, and retain a bodyguard of 400 men.
Oh, yeah. That's a
News came too late to prevent Wellington's attack on Toulouse, leading to a costly and pointless battle, with more than 7,000 casualties.
A pointless battle, yeah.
The night after his abdication, Napoleon tried to commit suicide, using the poison that had been made for him in Russia, in case of capture.
But that shit was too poor.
But it had lost its potency,
Oh, okay.
and he
Yeah,
survived.
of course.
2 weeks later, Napoleon bade farewell to his old guard at Fontainebleau Palace, and began his journey into exile.
I have been wrong, maybe it's my plan. I have done harm in war, but it is all like a dream. Napoleon, 20th April 1814. Wow.
The Napoleonic Wars, which had raged on land and sea for 11 years,
Wow.
seemed finally at an end.
11 years?
The death
God
toll
damn.
is unknown, but historians estimate that 2 to 3 million lives were lost across Europe. most soldiers died not in battle, but from disease.
Oh shit!
Many thousands were left maimed and disfigured.
Of course. I just think it's kind of horrible, man, that people
For
that
most
die
of this period, Napoleon was master of Europe, imposing treaties on humbled enemies, redrawing frontiers, overthrowing old regimes, and making new kings. He was the last figure in history to combine total political power with frontline military genius, in the mold of Alexander and Caesar.
100% fucking
But
facts.
it seemed Napoleon's reign was to end in abject military defeat. However, exile on Elba did not prove to Napoleon's taste. In less than 10 months, he would return to France to fight one last great campaign to reclaim his throne.
Yeah, that's not gonna go good for you, brother. That was a crazy ass. Wow.
Thank you to all our Patreon
Alright, man,
supporters.
let me pause here, man. Wow. I can't believe that I just watched the whole fucking thing of Napoleon's Endgame. Of course, there's one video more, I think, of the fight that he returns and trying to take Paris, but this video is just freaking amazing, man. I have to say, Napoleon was like Caesar, was like, you know, Alexander the Great. It's just crazy to see, man, really crazy to see, but he definitely crumbled at the Russians' expense. Like, Russia definitely defeated this guy, man, especially the Cossacks. But, yeah, I think many people did some horrible things in war, like, you know, didn't really behave that good when there was peace and all that, but it is what it is, man. That's part. There's many human beings in part of this war, and you can't really count for every single human being's action, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that was a great video, man. Napoleon is, wow. I actually didn't know all this was going on and he was still fighting, but I think Napoleon is not stupid, but he's too bigoted or whatever you call it, man. Too fed up with his own opinion, too fed up with his own politics, too nationalistic that France is the best and French never make mistakes and France is everywhere and France is the best and there's nothing wrong, when inside the country everything crumbles, everything goes to pieces. So yeah, many people have a hard time believing that when your country goes to pieces, and they really can't say that their country is going to pieces. They'd rather say that you don't know nothing about history, you don't know nothing about my country, go away, fuck you, you are propaganda, you are everything, blah, 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 blah. Blame everybody else for their own ignorancy. It is what it is, man. But yeah, anyway, guys and girls, I enjoyed this video so much. Thank you so much for the comment request. And I see there's not only the comment that I mentioned on this channel, there's a lot down in the comment section that requested this video. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, guys and girls, I'm back trying to upload videos. I'm trying to come back, of course. But you have to understand, I'm kind of tired when I come home. So yeah, but we almost have 5,000 subscribers, but please, if you like this reaction video, please hit the like button down below. It'd be massively appreciated. And if you really want to support this channel, we almost have 5,000 subscribers. It'd be massively appreciated if you would subscribe and hit that notification button. And you become a member of the JellyGoon squad, and you be updated on the newest videos that come through. It's been a long time since I did that, so yeah. Anyway, guys and girls, I'm gonna move on to the next one. Peace.